Greetings, humans of the internet, and welcome once again to Bowtie Talks. I, of course, am your excellent host, Luke Johnson, coming to you, as usual, from an undisclosed location in Midwest USA, with some more historical insights. And now that we are firmly in the month of summer, and all children are off from school, I assume many of you out there are on vacation already, or are getting ready to go on vacation. And I assume that some of you may be doing road trips for vacation, or at least have made road trips in the past. And one popular symbol of the American road trip and of America in general, of course, is the diner. That little spot well off the beaten path on the side of the road where you can indulge on chicken fried steak, swill copious amounts of coffee, and be sassed by a waitress with a southern accent. Just picture it. It's 5 p.m., the neon sign is glowing, the trucker is drinking coffee at the counter, and a family is finishing a meal after a ball game. The waitress knows about half the customers by name, and more on their way in. I cannot think of a better symbol of America. And I also think, as we will soon learn, that the diner is a symbol of American resilience in some cases. So please join me as I dive into the history of the American diner. Now, before I can dive into the history of the American diner, I must first explain exactly what a diner is. That is, what truly necessitates a diner, and how a diner can differ from a cafe. Now, the hours of a diner are certainly not 9 to 5. Might be open at 2 a.m., midnight, open at 4, and open 24 hours. These are some of the classic diner hours. And the food menu should be longer than the drink menu, and entrees with some sort of side should make an appearance. This, of course, differs somewhat from a cafe where the main goal may just be coffee. And now that we have that covered, we can now dive into the history of the American diner. It should come as a little shock to most people that we have one of the often discussed topics on Bowtie Talks, the Industrial Revolution, to thank for the American diner. As American industry grew, so too did the number of people needed to work at a certain business, and therefore the hours were often stretched. Some men may work at midnight and not get home until 2 a.m. And naturally, when they got off work, many were hungry. To supplement this, and to earn some extra money, in 1858, a young man named Walter Scott, not to be confused with the Scottish author Sir Walter Scott, who worked as a part-time pressman and typesetter in Providence, Rhode Island, began selling sandwiches and coffee from a basket to night workers at newspapers and patrons of gentlemen's clubs. And no, gentlemen's clubs did not mean the same thing it does now, you sickos. Get your head out of the gutter. This now gives me a chance to blow your minds. Believe it or not, food trucks and diners have a common origin. That's right. It happened in 1872 when young Walter Scott was so motivated by the money he thought he could make from his fellow late-night workers that he quit his job at the newspaper and opened up a late-night food cart, which he built from a horse-drawn wagon. And there he sold coffee, pie, sandwiches, and eggs. And he used the horse to move his cart around, hitting local factories and other businesses where he knew people were working late hours. Now, naturally, when the idea took off, there were copycats. Many people saw the new lunch wagon business as very lucrative and wanted to latch on to this growing industry. One such man was T.H. Buckley of Worcester, Massachusetts, who found that designing and manufacturing lunch wagons was more profitable than running lunch wagons. And these early dining cars, made by the Worcester Lunch Car Company, had large wheels, overhangs, murals, lettering, and frosted glass, while the interior contained basic stoves and an icebox. And by the 1900s, there were 3 companies that manufactured lunch wagons: the Worcester Lunch Car, Tierney, and O'Mahony. And due to their lucrative nature, food wagon vendors became so abundant on the streets that some cities adopted ordinances to restrict their hours of operation. This prompted some owners to circumvent the law by positioning their lunch wagons somewhat permanently. And at the same time, horse-drawn streetcars were being replaced by electric trolleys, and many displaced cars were brought and converted into dining venues at the fraction of the cost of a new dining car. And the unique design of the streetcars turned diners would eventually become so popular that it became mimicked. The first stationary diner was built in 1913 with a design modeled after a train car, and manufacturers later built shippable train-like dining cars by the mid-1920s. And the first stationary diner I forgot to mention was opened by Jerry O'Mahony, whom I mentioned before. He owned companies in New Jersey, Massachusetts, and New York that shipped diners all over the country. As the 1910s turned to the 1920s, they ushered in a new prosperity that inspired an artistic and cultural transformation across the United States. Diners were no exception. They embraced the Art Deco movement with enthusiasm. These establishments weren't just places to eat, they were art, embodying the spirit of innovation and progress. Now, naturally, after all this prosperity, there would be problems after a while. Diners operated on modest budgets, and most diner owners were more concerned with making a living than maintaining their places of business. These establishments soon gained a reputation as quote-unquote greasy spoons and gathering places for unsavory people. And to increase business, especially among women who gained the right to vote in 1920, diner owners cleaned up their image by adding shrubs and flower boxes, offering curb service, and repainting their establishments. Many diner owners also changed the names of their establishments to include the word Miss to feminize and soften their image. During the Great Depression, most diners stayed in business because they offered inexpensive places to eat. The 1930s also ushered in a new era for diner design. Diners in the 1930s had a streamlined design featuring bullet-shaped exteriors and chrome interiors. The streamlined design of the diner first appeared in the 1930s as an effort to change the diner's image. The streamlined futuristic designs reflected the modern era. Diners also offered a chance for immigrant employment. To this day, many diners are owned by Greek families. The Great Migration began in the 1880s as Europeans from southern Italy immigrated to the U.S. to participate in American industrialization. And in one of the first waves, roughly 400,000 Greek immigrants left Greece between 1890 and 1921 to come to America, primarily on the East Coast. When they came here, not many opportunities were open to them, but one thing they could do was work in a diner and do menial labor like washing dishes. The Greek restaurant workers were able to save their money and buy out restaurant owners. The Greeks brought with them their knowledge of the Greek, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, Kaphanion, which is a homey restaurant with simple menu items and that also served up lots of coffee. And of course, this template for diners is still around today. But anyway, back to the history. After World War II, the demand for diners increased drastically. GI Bill eligible servicemen had returned from the war, and the economy had shifted back to non-military production. Americans were eager to spend their money and make up for lost time. And by 1948, a dozen diner manufacturers were competing for a slice of that economic pie. Technological innovations that were developed before and during the war were repurposed for commercial productions of new materials like Formica, Naugahyde, and terrazzo floors, which would become mainstay in American diners. And as more and more Americans were on wheels, so to speak, the design of diners changed. And all stainless steel exteriors and large windows were new stylistic features incorporated to attract passing drivers. Developments in new mechanical systems like air conditioning, ventilation, and lighting in the 1950s liberated diner design from the form follows function saying, and the arrival of the space age reflected an obsession with rocket and jet transportation, which emphasized upward and outward mobility. Space was the new frontier, and this was mirrored in the diner designs of the mid to late 1950s. Diners around this time, however, began to lose customers to fast food establishments, which catered to Americans' desire for affordable food suited to a fast-paced lifestyle. Well, this was when America really got in a hurry, to say the least. And the few remaining diner manufacturers tried to conquer this by marketing their diners with neoclassical, Tudor, and Mediterranean architectural styles. Artificial stone, dark-stained wood, earth tones, and fabrics replaced the flashy look of stainless steel, neon, and bright colors. Many older diners were remodeled with brick walls and mansard roofs. A revival in the late 1970s sparked renewed interest in American diners, and the three remaining diner manufacturers started producing new diners in the old styles. New companies joined the growing market to create retro-look diners. The renewed interest in diners, I suppose, can be attributed to Americans looking for inspiration and values from the past during times of moral and economic uncertainty. You have to remember this was during the recession. season, when the overall mood of the country was pretty dark. And so people began to look to the past for happier times. Diners have since become ingrained in American culture. One state, however, definitely reigns supreme, and that, of course, is New Jersey. New Jersey has been called the diner capital of the world, and with good reason, I might add. Today, there are over 2,000 registered diners in America, and almost a quarter of them are in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey having 600 diners. New Jersey has all the right ingredients to be the diner capital of America, I must say. Like a good transportation system, a large working class population, and many diner manufacturing companies. Perhaps it was these diner manufacturing companies that many chains have tried to copy. The diner style, several national corporate franchises like Denny's, Silver Diners, and Johnny Rockets have adapted the diner look as part of the new marketing concepts. And a diner trend also developed in Europe, leading to increased sales for American diner manufacturers. And today, the interest in American diners still flourishes. Many vintage diners have been saved from demolition and relocated to new sites in the United States and Europe. Manufacturers are experiencing new orders or renovation projects in a retro style, and some museums have organized temporary exhibits on diners or incorporated complete historic diners as permanent exhibits or dining venues. Interestingly, the Massachusetts Historical Commission has listed all functional vintage diners on the National Register of Historic Places, and this list continues to grow annually, which just shows that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Diners have become community gathering places where people from all walks of life and backgrounds can share a good meal in a warm and comforting atmosphere. And diners continue to be cultural icons, influencing almost every aspect of American life, including food, restaurants, popular culture, design, fashion, and who knows what else. Diners have also created small business opportunities in the suburbs and offer affordably priced, fast, hot food, which is an ideal option for truck drivers and people on the road, which is possibly one of the reasons why the northeastern states have been very good to diners. Though the evolution and constant change in style, technology, and cuisine pose a threat to the diner industry, the northeastern states have definitely managed to conserve and prosper their diners, which still remain competitive against chain restaurants and other popular establishments. And with that, I'm afraid now, folks, I will have to leave you yet again. What have we learned today? Well, for one thing, I think we've learned that the more things change, the more they stay the same. After all, people still need good food, and want good food, I should say. And even though the world seems so divided at this time, it's good to know that there are still places where we can all still get along. I mean, no one's ever started a war while eating a good meal. Well, actually, I probably shouldn't say that. I have heard some horror stories of people at Thanksgiving dinners, but it is what it is. And with that, I now say goodbye and God bless.